Good morning, everyone. And thank you, IFC, Toshi-san and his team, for providing us this opportunity to come and introduce our company to you. And I'm honored to be in Japan, sitting in front of all the people here from the Japanese company and the ministry. Just a quick introduction to our company. The company is called Engro Foods. Engro Foods is part of a larger conglomerate in Pakistan called Engro Corporation, and it's a public listed company. Today's presentation, I'll just give you a quick overview of the Engro Foods operation, a very brief introduction to what Pakistan is, and then I will talk about Engro Foods' inclusive business model and how we face the challenges. So at Engro Foods, our mission is to elevating consumer delight worldwide, and currently we estimated revenue at the end of 2012, we believe we're going to be about $450 million company. We currently operate in liquid dairy and ice cream in Pakistan, and we just very recently acquired an ethnic halal foods company in Canada, and we're currently expanding it into the US market as well. So what have we done so far? We are the market leaders in UHT treated processed milk. It's the first company in Pakistan to cross a billion pack mark. This is an achievement as Tetra Pak, which you are all familiar with, a packaging company. They operate in over 100 countries with more than 3,000 customers, and only 18 customers in the world actually have crossed that billion pack mark. And in Pakistan, we're one of them. Pakistan, or Engro Foods won the ICT award. This is the technology which I'm going to talk about a little bit later as part of the inclusive business model. We also received a very proud G20 Summit Challenge Award for Innovation and Inclusive Business Model, hosted and organized by IFC. Thank you very much. And Engro Foods was listed on the stock exchange separately as a separate public listed offering in 2011 July. And in the last 15 months, we were very proud to report that Engro Foods has actually become the most efficient or the most promising stock on the stock exchange in Karachi, whereby in the last 15 months, the Karachi Stock Exchange has posted a growth of about 29%. And Engro Food stock has performed 186% growth. So we're the fastest growing listed company in Pakistan in the history of Stock Exchange of Pakistan in the last 50 years. So far, we've been constantly growing and expanding our portfolio. You can see that, and also very proud to report that we're a very financially sustainable company. This year, we'll roughly make a net profit of about $25 million. A quick introduction to what Pakistan looks like, contrary to what most of you are familiar with via CNN or Fox News. It's actually a very diverse and a beautiful country. Very wide culture, history, rich with natural resources, mountains, and beautiful people. It's also a very strategically located country, and if you look at the neighborhood of Pakistan, including India, Iran, Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and China, this is a region or the neighborhood which hosts about 2.5 billion people. So it's a very, very strategic location in terms of a consumer opportunity per se. Just a quick introduction, it's a country of about 180 million people. With a median age of 21 versus the world median of 28. So it's a very, very young country. 50% of the population is actually below the age of 20 years. 58% of urban population lives in only 5 metros. So you can imagine the 5 metros are very, very densely populated. It's a young economy, or I would say it's a small economy, roughly around $500 billion. And the way the economy is structured is that 21% of the economy comes from the agriculture. About 50% is the industry, and the remaining 25% is the services. Now, I'm just going to focus on the agriculture part right now. And 55% of the agriculture, or 55% of the $150 billion in the agriculture actually comes from livestock. So livestock is the largest part of the agri-produce in Pakistan. And that agri-produce from livestock is either meat or milk. So milk is in fact the largest trading commodity in Pakistan, over 2 trillion rupees. The way the socio-economic pyramid is, if you can see, 27 million people live in the upper strata of the economic pyramid, but a very, very large population in the middle and the base of the economic pyramid. 36% of the population is in urban centers. The remaining is all rural, and I'm going to come to the rural part of Pakistan in a little bit later. But if you just look at the top of the pyramid itself, the size of the SEC A1 is actually larger than the whole UAE population. So it's also a very diverse split of the economic pyramid. Now I'm going to focus primarily on the milk, or the milk procurement in Pakistan. That is where our inclusive business model is set up. So this is the landscape of dairy in Pakistan. It actually comes from a very deep rural pocket. The dairy in Pakistan is split over 8 million households. So it's 8 million farmers who produce milk, with 67 million cattle, and the milk production of almost 45 billion liters. It's the 5th largest milk producing country in the world. Average animal holding per household is about 2 to 5 animals. And the primary function of this cattle is actually not producing milk. Milk is only, I would say, a byproduct. The primary function of this cattle is still plowing the field. So it's still agriculture, or the large agriculture produce actually still comes from a very, very conventional mode of deployment. As a process, or as a consequence, there's a very, very huge amount of loss in this produce, almost 15%, which accounts for almost 11 billion liters of milk is wasted every year. So the fundamental business model that Engro Food started with was to try and capture this waste. And why is that wasted is a very important thing to understand. Just fundamentally, that farmer does not have the linkage to the market. The milk is produced in such deep rural pockets with absolutely no presence of infrastructure, and hence obviously the milk never sees the market. 80% is available for human consumption, 20% is fed to the calves as it goes on as a structure of the dairy business, 57% for rural and 23% for urban consumption. And 20% of the total milk sold is still in loose form. Now, 20% of 42 billion is still a very, very large consumption domain. And the formal sector, or the organized sector, actually only present or operates in $1 billion. So the total size of the processed milk industry in Pakistan is only $1 billion, of 200 billion that I spoke about earlier. So how do we do that? Or how have we set up this supply chain? Or this is fundamentally what our inclusive business is all about. So we currently collect milk from 145,000 farmers. Remember earlier I told you there's 8 million families. So of that 8 million, in these 6 years that we've operated or created this company, we're only reaching 145,000 farmers, directly or indirectly, who bring their milk to our milk collection centers. Now, these milk collection centers are very deeply rooted in the deep rural communities in the country. We're currently up to about 1,200 milk collection centers. At the end of next year, we'll be up to about 1,700. And our target by 2015 is to operate around 3,000 milk collection centers across the country. So through this, we then transfer all this milk through mobile vans to a processing center. That's where the first primary processing happens. And some milk is also brought through contractors at this stage. We then transfer it through large vans to our 2 factories in the central part of Pakistan and the southern part of Pakistan. And then we also operate our own dairy farm, a corporate dairy farm, which also supplies about 3% of our total milk collection. Now, this whole setup, this whole cold chain is operated at 4 degrees. So the moment we collect the milk, it's immediately cooled at 4 degrees, and this whole process, by the time it reaches our factory, is completed in 9 hours every day. So we start at 5:30 in the morning, and in 9 hours, all that milk reaches our factories. Today, we are processing around 1.5 million liters a day. So it's a very, very large operation. We then distribute it through the conventional distribution methods to the country. Now, Engro Food covers, in this whole model, around 135,000 kilometers. So this imagine the size or the depth of this infrastructure, which is very, very detailed. Now, what are the challenges? The first challenge we face is obviously the infrastructure. There is absolutely no road network that is available in this rural infrastructure. Power is a very, very big crisis in Pakistan. We currently have, on a constrained demand basis, a power shortfall of about 11,000 megawatts. So you can imagine in the rural setup, power is actually not available about 14 to 16 hours a day. So electricity availability in the rural, not just the rural, in some of the urban centers as well, but it's a very, very big crisis in Pakistan today. Modes of farming is yet another challenge. As I said earlier, these average household cattle holding is about 2 to 5 cattle. And they only produce 3 liters average a day. Now, if you compare that to the world benchmark, the productive dairy farms or the productive cattle goes as high as 35 to 50 liters. So compare that to this small holding, which is only 3 to 5 liters a day. Another challenge is lack of financing, because all these farmers who have never actually seen the bank in their life, they don't even know what bank is. And obviously animal health and breeding. Now, this has become a major challenge in the last few years. Unfortunately, Pakistan has had 2 very large natural disasters and floods and earthquakes. And because of that, a lot of disease has set in, a lot of cattle loss has happened, a lot of displacement has happened. And that's one of the reasons also this has become now a very big challenge for us. Now, how do we address that? The infrastructure, as I said, we go at the doorstep of the farmers. So we set up all these milk collection centers. Iman is one platform that we've deployed. It's not as smart as what Sony Corporation just told us, or the NFC, as Mitsui Corporation said. But this is our first humble approach to get there. It requires a little bit explanation. I'll tell you how it works. Now, in the dairy industry, those of you who are familiar with how the dairy industry operates, milk is paid for or traded not by volume. So milk is not paid by liters or gallons. Milk is paid by amount of total solids in 1 liter. So 1 liter of milk doesn't mean you get paid for 1 liter of milk. 1 liter of milk is paid for a standardized total solid, so proteins and fats. So as long as it has 13% fats and solids, that constitutes 1 liter of milk. So this is how the industry operates worldwide. That's a global standard. So what had happened before was that some of the companies who were already present in the dairy market for several years, the farmer would bring 10 liters of milk to the collection centers or whatever. It would take about 2 to 3 days for the processor to actually tell the farmer that the 10 liters you brought, you're only actually getting paid for 7, because this is how your total solids were constituted. And then after that, once it is determined and the chit is issued to them, they will get paid in a week's time. So at an average, the payment lag was around 10 to 12 days. Now, what Iman does is that there's a technology, all the farmers that we work with directly, they have this POS card, which we call Iman. In literal terms, in Urdu or Hindi means faith. So this is really a trust system that we've based, but actually it means for Engro Milk Automation Network. So it's a by meaning word. So what it does is the Iman card, they come and swap the card. All our milk collection centers are now equipped with mini labs. So we conduct close to 30 tests in a span of 7 minutes. So immediately within 7 minutes, the farmer knows how much milk he brought, how much milk he's getting paid for, and whether he is improving the quality from the last time or not. So I will get into more detail in that. So they get all that information within 7 minutes. And through this, the pricing is published every day on a market price, and our payment mechanism is based on certain percentage higher than the average market price that day. And before they go home, the money is already transferred in their bank account. So we saw this as a very large need in the sector. And one of the things that enabled us to actually work directly with these farmers and completely eliminate the middleman was that fact that the farmers actually needed a transparent process where they immediately know. Now, this relationship also helped us to start improving the quality. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the milk quality, but in the Western world or in the more evolved economies, the milk is a carrier of bacteria. So these are good bacteria, these are bad bacteria, and all that stuff. But generally, the standard is 10 to 15,000 plate counts per liter. The milks that we were receiving about 6 years ago ranged up to 11 million plate counts. World standard, 10,000. What we were receiving was 11 million. At this stage, we're already below 1 million stage. So what we have done in these last 6 years or 7 years is that we've constantly provided this agri-service to the farmers that we operate with, and we train them on some very, very basic fundamentals. And those basic fundamentals is vaccinate your cattle, protect them against a disease, importance of hygiene where the cattle is kept, kind of diseases which happen only because of the hygiene standards, and importance of feeding your cattle clean water. So just by doing these basic interventions with these farmers, we have been able to improve the quality of that milk 11 times over the last 6 years. And in addition to that, we also start to, thank you, we also start to teach them on how to increase their productivity. So at an average so far, whoever we have worked with, we have increased their productivity at least 50%. So the cattle who was producing 3 liters is now starting to produce 4 or 5 liters of milk. So our goal is that, by the time we reach almost 500,000 farmers, and if we are able to increase the productivity level by 50% and start to capture some of the wastage, this in itself will be able to fund or fuel our growth over the next 10 to 15 years. So we won't have to invest in even further things. How do we address the load shedding challenge? All our milk collection centers are now moving. We started off with diesel gensets at each milk collection center so that we could start to cool down the milk immediately in order to prevent the further bacteria growth. But now slowly, since we are in the rural pockets, we're now starting to convert all those diesel gensets to biogas, where in fact the cost of collecting the biomass is actually almost next to nothing. So it's also a very efficient way of using the power generation. Modes of farming, we have qualified agri-services. At the moment, we employ roughly 400 veterinarians within the system, who then work with all these 145,000 farmers that you work with. In addition to that, and I'm going to say something here a little bit off track to the popular view this morning on NGOs and NPOs. We have worked with CELDAC, which is a UNDP subsidiary, and WELD. And I'm going to talk about WELD a little bit more. It's actually USAID funded project. And what we've done is, through these two programs, we have started to include women into the trained workforce. So both of these livelihood programs actually bring women, train them on basic veterinary sciences and disease prevention and hygiene and vaccination. So we train them for 3 months, and we send them back into their home communities. And these, we're only talking about women from the rural communities that we operate our milk collection network. So we train them for 3 months, put them back in. We also, as part of the conglomerate, produce fertilizer. So we give them access to fertilizer to sell. We connect them through semen companies for breed improvement and breed deployment. We connect them with pharmaceutical companies who give them access to vaccines. So these women with 3 months training, when they go back into their communities, they're called doctors. Because what we train them is lady livestock workers. So they actually go back and start improving all these qualities. So it's like a virtuous cycle that you create, not only bring unproductive workforce into productive workforce, but they also start to feel very, very dignified and important, because as soon as they go back, they're called doctors. And it's now becoming very, very important. Initially, we targeted a 3 years plan was around 11,000 women. We stopped the CELDAC program when we trained only about 380 of these women, and then CELDAC backed off because their mandate does not allow them to work with a private company. So they stopped working with us. So then, we made a lot of representation to the U.S. consulate and embassies in Pakistan to try and convince them to come back, but they decided not to. Then we started partnering with USAID to get some technical assistance as well. And we've started this it's called Women Empowerment, Livestock and Dairy. So Women Empowerment in Livestock and Dairy. So this is the program that we started now with the USAID, where we get a lot of trained dairy experts from different parts of the world, from Turkey and Egypt, where dairy industry has gone through that transformation. And we continue to do this program, although the speed is much slower than what we initially anticipated, but we're trying very hard to continue to deploy that. Lack of financing, and that's the reason why we have now started. So far, we have not focused on financing our farmers, but we are now currently in discussions with IFC on a program to bring these farmers or bring them access to funding or financing. And animal health, again, we conduct medical camps and vaccination drives, and also try to promote artificial insemination. Now, some of you who belong to countries with strong Catholic cultures or Muslim cultures, you can imagine how big this artificial insemination concept is. It's as bad as contraception. So this is also one of the challenges we're facing in terms of promoting this method for breed improvement. So going forward, we see a very, very large agriculture space in Pakistan, which currently resides 93 to 94% of that space is in informal sector. So it's not in the formal sector. So we see that as a very large opportunity for us. There's a huge availability of rural workforce, which has not entered the workforce domain. Increase in yields, convert wastage to usable milk, and potential to export dairy products to other countries. Now, exports will only be possible if not only we increase the yields more than the demand increase, but also improve the quality to a state or to a stage where we can then export to the foreign markets. Objective is to increase processed milk share to 30%. Currently, as I explained to you earlier, the processed milk is only 7% of the total consumption. So our objective over the next 10 years is to increase that share to 30%. with parallel expansion in procurement network. Thank you.